Chapter 121. What if I refuse? Chu Yang asked. 5 Elements City is under the control of our Inyang sect. By killing the city lord here, you are challenging our Inyang sect. Shouldn't I capture you? Sect leader Wu said with a smile. She wasn't in a hurry, waiting calmly for Chu Yang's response. Chu Yang was silent for a while, knowing that what his adversary had proposed was an overt scheme, rooted in his own weakness. I don't understand. Chu Yang looked up at sect leader Wu and said, your Inyang sect is one of the 4 top-tier sects in the extreme west region. Why would you choose an ordinary person like me to be the saint heir? Firstly, let me correct you, I'm not offering you the position of saint heir, but rather a chance to compete for it, sect leader Wu said. Secondly, you are not an ordinary person. I felt the most primordial essence within the yin and yang qi in your body. Chu Yang was silent for a moment, then said with a bitter smile, do I even have a choice? No, sect leader Wu shook her head. The Pure Moon Divine Realm is located at the border of the extreme west region, just a thin line away from the center of the eastern continent. The name Pure Moon Divine Realm comes from the Pure Moon altar. Legend has it that at the dawn of the epic, the universe was in chaos, unclean and pure chi were intermingled, indistinguishable, and the heavens and earth were almost the same color. Thus, the universe gave birth to an altar. This altar had the ability to purify all things in the world. With its help, the unclean and pure chi finally separated completely. Later, the altar settled in a pivotal location between heaven and earth, becoming one with them. Around the location of the altar, a sect called Myriad Beast sect began to establish itself millions of years later. Since then, the situation in the extreme west had truly stabilized. The 3 great imperial rule immortal sects are the True Martial Holy Sect, Divine Sun Holy Sect, and Purgatory Holy Sect. The 4 top-tier sects are Holy Spring Sect, Immortal Spirit Sect, Inyang Sect, and the Myriad Beast Sect. Su Zime and Renpingxing traveled through the night and, after nearly 5 days, finally arrived at 100 Beast City. This city, managed by the Myriad Beast Sect, presented different monster beasts from any direction, whether from the east, south, west, or north. There were furious-eyed wild lions, iron-fisted gorillas thumping their chests, mysterious birds spreading their wings, and dragons and tigers roaring skyward. The design and construction of the city were marvels, exhibiting exceptional ingenuity and painstaking effort as Su Zime and Renpingxing entered the city. Being managed by the Myriad Beast sect, most of the residents were either disciples of the sect or family members and relatives. Therefore, it was common to see half-beast people on the streets. Most of these half-beast people had the head of a beast and a human body, each with their own monster beast characteristic features. Some had the head of a lion, some the trunk of an elephant, and others sprouted wings that could overshadow the heavens. Here, the most popular women belonged to 2 types: the folded ear girls with cat ears and the dancing maidens with a kind of rabbit's tail. It feels like I've entered an animal kingdom, so lively, Renpingxing commented, looking at the half-beast people, and laughed. Did you know? In the eyes of the half-beast people, their bloodline is the noblest. To them, us pure-blooded humans are the lowest, Su Zime said with a smile. Superficial, after all, no matter what they think, our bloodlines are pure, whereas theirs are not. Otherwise, they wouldn't have established their sect around the Pure Moon Divine Realm. Renpingxing stated, enough, let's find an inn to stay for the night and go to the Pure Moon Divine Realm tomorrow. Su Zime laughed. As they were about to look for an inn, they saw a group of people approaching them. This group consisted of 4 people, with 2 elderly-looking individuals who appeared to be guards, standing on both sides. In the middle were 2 young men, one holding a folding fan, dressed in a white robe, with an extraordinary handsomeness on his face that made one cannot help but exclaim, "What a graceful young gentleman." The other young man looked somewhat burly, with naturally curly golden hair scattering behind him, making him resemble a golden lion king. At that moment, staring at the graceful young man with the folding fan, Su Zime was completely stunned in place. It was as if he could hear again the sounds from that year by the weeping willow riverbank, the breeze caressing his face, and the girl with tears streaking her face, crying and begging him not to leave, to stay and live through an ordinary life with her. He abandoned the girl, leaving behind only his silhouette. He departed with his sword, his aura as a divine Vane realm warrior bursting forth like the sea, vast as mist stretching thousands of miles. That day, the setting sun painted the sky with an afterglow, casting 2 long shadows in the end. He embarked on the road of no return. He said he was going to defeat Chuyang. He wanted to carry out his destiny. He aspired to become a great emperor. He wanted to soar into the sky to see a broader world. He shouldn't be shackled by romantic entanglements. His resolve was firm and decisive. Even as he watched the girl crouching on the ground, holding her head and crying, he did not hesitate for a moment. Suzume didn't dare to make those grand statements about recognizing her even if she turned into ashes or anything of that sort. But at this moment, even if the girl were dressed as a boy, or no matter how she disguised herself, Suzume could recognize her in a glance because the girl had a pair of unique eyes that seemed extraordinarily spirited even with just one glance. Suzume could recognize her at this moment. Looking at the girl, Suzume was completely petrified in place. Memories of the past seemed to roll slowly like heavy gears, pressing down on him like murmurs from ancient beings until he could barely breathe. He watched as the girl slowly walked by him. Suzume felt as if he had fallen into a huge trap. Flanking the girl, on both sides were two elders, their auras turbulent. Suzume could see that they were two Emperor Pulse Realm experts. The appearances of these two elders were also striking. One resembled the always smiling Maitreya Buddha, his face brimming with joyous red light. The other's entire face appeared to be filled with grievance and bitterness, as if expressing the very essence of the character for awkward. Sad Taoist and happy Taoist. Suzume had heard of these two in his previous life, and they were prominent figures even among Emperor Pulse Realm experts. The girl traveled with two seasoned Emperor Pulse Realm experts by her side at this moment. Suzume felt as if everything from his past life had turned into a joke. All those notions about a girl from a small village, about living an ordinary life together, all nonsense. An uncontrollable rage exploded in his mind. All the love and guilt he had felt for the girl in his heart seemed to have turned into a skyful of fury. Suzume admitted that in his previous life, he wasn't exactly the big boss behind the scenes. He was merely a stepping stone on Chuyang's path to rise, and toward the end, he didn't even qualify as an opponent, pitiful and lamentable with a new life. Suzume thought of becoming the big boss, becoming a demon king that terrified at the mention of his name, but he also wanted to protect the family he had wronged in his previous life, and those few friends, as well as the girl who had occupied his thoughts day and night. Chapter 122. You lied to me. Why did you lie to me? Suzume roared and charged straight at the girl. Do you know I've always considered you the most important person? Why did you deceive me too? Suzume blocked the group's path and shouted at the girl, demanding an answer. Kid, what are you doing? The blonde young man asked frowningly at his side. It was all a scam, wasn't it? I don't understand what you could possibly gain by lying to me. Suzume ignored the blonde young man and instead looked at the girl, asking with an icy tone. What's the matter with you, kid? Looking for death? The blonde young man stood in front of Suzume, speaking down to him. Shut up. He drew the tyrant shadow, and with one strike, heavenly thunder rumbled, deep purple thunderbolts spreading along the blade. The blonde young man probably didn't expect Suzume to draw his sword and strike without a word. He didn't even have the chance to react before his head was completely severed from his body. Blood dripped from the curved blade as Suzume just stood there, looking at the girl. Regarding the death of the blonde young man, the two old men nearby remained indifferent, and even the dashing young man the girl was pretending to be only slightly frowned, not saying much. Could it be that you've mistaken me for someone else? The girl frowned as she looked at Suzume and asked, mistaken someone else? Suzume shook his head mockingly and said, your name is Lankir, and you live in Zishuan village. You told me your three greatest wishes are to watch a sunrise and sunset with the one you love, see your favorite lavender with the one you love, and to travel the entire continent with the one you love, then find a place off the beaten path to retire when we're old. All this was a lie to deceive me, right? Saying this, Suzume's expression froze and he suddenly laughed. Zishuan village, purple lavender, so even the name of the village was made up and the village itself was fake, right? How do you know what I've always wanted to do? Lankir was startled, looking at Suzume and said, the rest are true, but my home isn't in Zishuan village, it's in the central continent. Central continent? Suzume was taken aback, then quickly realized, the Lan family from the central continent? You still haven't told me how you know about my wishes? Lan Qir nodded with a puzzled expression and asked, seeing the girl nod. Su Zime was also immediately dumbfounded. If the girl was from the Lan family, then everything she had previously told him should have been the genuine truth from her heart, that is to say. Apart from hiding her background, she didn't lie to him about other things. Su Zime, who had been determined to accuse her, suddenly felt as if his head had been doused in ice water, standing there awkwardly embarrassed. You haven't answered my question. Lan Qir frowned and asked, sorry, I mistook you for someone else. You look a bit like a friend of mine, Su Zime said with an embarrassed smile, and then grabbed Ren Pingxing standing nearby and shouted, I told you it wasn't her. But you insisted it was. Now look, we've got the wrong person. As Su Zime spoke, he started walking quickly away with Ren Pingxing, who looked utterly confused. Hey, Lan Qir's voice called from behind, just to warn you, the guy you just killed is the grandson of a core elder of the Myriad Beasts sect. You still have time to run. Looking at Su Zime's retreating figure, the sad Taoist next to her frowned and said, Miss, should I bring him back? Follow him and see. Lan Qir watched Su Zime, always feeling something strange about him. It wasn't surprising that he knew her name, as anyone could find out with a little investigation, but the three wishes Su Zime spoke of, to travel the continent with a loved one and eventually settle in a haven, were indeed what she yearned for in life. She had never spoken these thoughts to anyone, which was somewhat deeply disturbing. Su Zime and Ren Pingxing found an inn, opened 2 rooms, and then sat downstairs to order some dishes and began to eat. Ren Pingxing asked in confusion, young master, did you know those people just now? I know her, but she doesn't know me, Su Zime said with a smile. The Lan family, it is a very mysterious clan. Legend has it that every inheritor of the Lan family will have a mission, but no one knows what this mission is. Perhaps, aside from the Lan family itself, each era's great emperors may know a little more or less. However, the great emperors have all tacitly chosen to remain silent, but unlike other great clans, the Lan family never demands their descendants to do anything. The life choices of Lan family descendants are for them to decide. You can choose to give up the mission that the family has passed down for generations. The family will not force you even with the marriages of Lan family descendants. The family won't interfere, even if you end up marrying a rustic villager and retiring to the mountains. It is permitted. This is also why, after Su Zime knew that Lan Qir was from the Lan family, he was certain the girl hadn't lied to him. Su Zime did not plan to recognize Lan Qir so soon. Even though she no longer remembered him, they could get to know each other again. However, Su Zime knew that his main goal right now was cultivation to enhance his strength, not these romantic entanglements. Now that he knew Lan Qir was from the Lan family, they were bound to meet one day. Though he truly wished to stay by the girl's side, he knew now was not the right time. The sound of footsteps at the door drew his attention, and Su Zime looked up to see Lan Qir, accompanied by sad Taoist and another Taoist, arriving and taking a seat. The 3 sat at the next table. Lan Qir placed her folding fan on the table, gazing intently and with evident interest at Su Zime. Su Zime felt that if it were someone else, he would have swung his sword at them by now, but the girl. He fell silent for a moment, preparing to go upstairs back to his room. However, just as he was about to stand up, a group of people rushed into the inn. They bore the distinct features of monster beasts, and one could tell at a glance that they were disciples of the Myriad Beasts sect. Who was it that just killed my grandson Qi? A figure of an elder strode forward swiftly. He glanced around and finally fixated on Su Zime. This elder exuded a strong aura of the Emperor Pulse realm, and his mouth was particularly sharp, resembling the beak of a rock. The hair on his head was sparse, leaving few strands, and especially those sharp, gloomy eyes, which made people quite uncomfortable. Su Zime gave the elder a look and continued eating his meal without responding. What's the matter? Brave enough to kill but not to admit it. Scared now? The elder took steps towards Su Zime's direction. You hold him off. He'll handle the rest. No problem, right? Su Zime put down his chopsticks and asked Ren Pingxing. I also just wanted to try my hand at fighting a martial artist of the Emperor Pulse realm, Ren Pingxing said with a smile. Having received the inheritance from the sun-devouring emperor, he was confident that even if he couldn't defeat a martial artist of the Emperor Pulse realm, holding them off for a while shouldn't be a problem. Chapter 123. Watching the old man approach step by step, Ren Pingxing's body was enveloped with dark red flames. while the space around him slowly began to melt. A single punch was thrown, and a trail of pure white smoke rose in the air. The old man's eyebrows furrowed as his true fate emerged forthrightly. Taking the form of a grand rock, the grand rock, as it took to the wind, fluttered its wings, creating a sweeping windstorm. Engaging in combat with Ren Pingsheng, on the other hand, those other disciples of the myriad beasts sect all charged at Suzime, who grasped the tyrant shadow, wielding the 19 forms of the way of inquiry almost as if taking a life with every step. However, among these disciples were several of the esteemed Vane Realm elders, who in combination could still tangle with Suzime for a while. Of course, this was also because Suzime had not yet resorted to using the prison-suppressing divine body at the side. Lon Kier watched the scene unfold with a slight frown, instructing, "Go help them." "Rest assured, miss, I've had my eye on this brat for a while now," said the sad Taoist as he stood up, releasing the aura of the Emperor Pulse realm from his body. His true fate was a long river, and as it gently flowed, sounds of soft sobbing seemed to emanate from within. This caused an unexplainable sorrow to swell in the hearts of those who heard it. "I meant for you to help them, not the people from the myriad beasts sect," Lon Kier said with dissatisfaction in her voice. "Ah." The sad Taoist was taken aback as he saw his already uncomfortable expression sour even further. Watching the sad Taoist helping Renpingsheng block the elders from the myriad beasts sect, Lon Kier turned to the happy Taoist and said, "You go stop those disciples of the myriad beasts sect. I want to talk to him alone." "Miss, our purpose here was to form an alliance with the myriad beasts sect. This might not reflect well on us," the happy Taoist said with some hesitation, though his face was perpetually adorned with a smile. "Are you teaching me how to conduct my affairs?" Lon Kier slightly lifted her head, looking calmly at the happy Taoist. "I wouldn't dare." The happy Taoist hastily shook his head, then got up and joined the fray. Just as Suzime had slain a disciple of the myriad beasts sect, he felt a tug at his clothes turning around. He saw Lon Kier pulling him towards the outside of the inn, while all those oncoming disciples of the myriad beasts sect were being blocked by the happy Taoist. The two ended up in a quiet alley behind the inn with Suzime smiling at the girl. Then, a sword light flashed across the sky, and the girl held a long sword emitting a faint white glow in her hand. The cold touch of the long sword rested on Suzime's neck, as if time had frozen at that moment. A light breeze blew from afar, stirring up wisps of dust, and the gentle sunlight shone at the entrance of the alley. The girl's long hair, usually coiled atop her head, cascaded down, contrasting with the pair of spirited eyes that serenely watched Suzime. Suzime chuckled and said, "The last time we met, you were crying and begging me. I never thought our next meeting would be with swords drawn." "What are you talking about?" Lon Kier frowned, replying coolly, "I don't know you." "Nothing, just reminiscing," Suzime said, shaking his head with a smile. "How did you know about my wishes?" Lon Kier asked in a clear, cold voice. "You'd better come clean, or I'll kill you with one strike." "You should kill me. I deserve to die." Suzime took a deep breath and said earnestly, "I once had a sincere love right before my eyes, but I did not cherish it. It's only after I lost it that I was filled with regret." "Speak plainly." Lon Kier pressed the sword a bit closer, nearly breaking the skin on Suzime's neck. "Do you believe in fate?" "I don't." The girl shook her head. "Believe in fate?" "I don't." Suzime fell silent for a moment, then said, "If you don't believe in anything, how can I explain this to you? You think I don't dare to kill you?" Lon Kier snorted coldly and said indifferently, "You should understand, only the dead can keep a secret forever. I once had a dream, actually. I can't tell if it was a dream or reality." Suzime sighed and slowly said, "What kind of dream?" Lon Kier looked at Suzime and asked, "In the dream, it was you. You said you loved me, you wanted to have my children, and you wanted to escape with me to a paradise, begging me not to leave you, but I refused," Suzime said slowly. "You're full of shit. I'm not that kind of person," Lon Kier exclaimed in shock, loudly protesting. "It's true. I'm not lying to you. Even though the dream ended, fate gave me another chance. I secretly swore that this time I would treat you well. You like having children, right? No problem. We'll have lots and lots of children in the future. If one isn't enough, then 10 or even 20, don't worry. I can handle it, Suzume said earnestly. Try flirting with me one more time. Lan Kier slightly tilted the long sword in her hand, threatening fiercely. I'm not joking, Suzume chuckled bitterly as a gentle breeze lifted his hair, and he said with a serious tone, Do you know who I remembered the most before I died in that dream? Apart from my parents, it was you. My feelings for you are not just love, but also a deep sense of guilt. My father is the deputy sect master of the true martial holy sect. I don't lack resources, nor women. Do you think I have any reason to lie to you? True martial holy sect? Lan Kier paused for a moment and said indifferently, You said it yourself. It was a dream. You might just have been daydreaming. Suzume fell silent for a moment and said no more. You tell a good story, Lan Kier said calmly. Thank you, Suzume laughed softly, but his smile was filled with bitterness. He was contemplating a question. Is it that once you lose something, it can never be returned to, like a shattered cup that can't be put back together? Lan Kier looked into Suzume's eyes, which were deep and seemed as still as dead water, inexplicably aged. People often say that the eyes are the windows to the soul, and through them one can see a person's innermost thoughts for some reason. As Lan Kier gazed into his eyes that seemed to harbor countless stories and hardships, she felt an inexplicable pain in her heart. She didn't know why she felt this sudden, unexplained heartache for the young man before her. Crazy, she sheathed her longsword and, without turning her head, walked away. Since your story was so intriguing, I'll let you go this time. Hey, my name is Suzume. Who wants to know your name? This story is a long one. I can tell it to you slowly. Don't you want to know what happened between us? I don't, the girl said, claiming disinterest, but still she stopped and turned to look at Suzume. The gentle breeze that passed by the willow trees on the roadside took a wide loop before blowing from the alley's entrance, making the girl's hair dance gracefully. Chapter 124. If your story isn't fascinating, then I'll kill you, Lan Kier said proudly, looking up at Suzume. I need to make a trip to the Pure Moon Divine Realm. You'll come with me and I'll tell you the story, Suzume replied. Lan Kier fell silent for a moment, then finally nodded her head. From now on, you can call me Brother Zimo. I don't want to. They'll call you Kier. Get lost. Legend has it that after the Pure Moon altar was established behind the pillars of heaven and earth, the world was blessed with 4 types of elemental spiritual energy. The heavenly thunder roared, descending to the east of the altar, creating a thunder domain. The earth fire blazed, descending to the west of the altar, creating a fire domain. Hurricanes mixed with the torrent's waters fell in both the south and north of the altar, forming both the wind domain and the water domain respectively. The Pure Moon altar was surrounded by these 4 elemental domains, which collectively came to be known as the Pure Moon Divine Realm. Martial artists often came here to temper their bodies, as cultivating corresponding vein skills, including cultivation techniques within these domains, was immensely efficient. A million years later, the Myriad Beasts sect established their sect here, initially intending to claim the Pure Moon Divine Realm as their own. However, they faced opposition from a large group of loose cultivators. The realm was naturally formed by heaven and earth, not constructed by the Myriad Beasts sect. Loose cultivators already found cultivation difficult and without resources. Finally, having such a place to aid in their cultivation, they naturally did not want to give it up so easily. Moreover, the covert interference from several other first-rate sects forced the Myriad Beasts sect to compromise reluctantly. They designated the area of the Pure Moon altar as a forbidden land and used it as a boundary, while the 4 surrounding elemental domains were free for loose cultivators to enter and exit as they pleased. Suzume arrived at the water domain located in the north. Together with Lan Kier, at this moment many loose cultivators had already gathered here. The entrance to the water domain was a particularly wide gate of water. Lan Kier said with a smile, the entire Myriad Beast sect is probably issuing a warrant for your arrest by now, and yet you dare to run into their stronghold. My father is Su Qinshan, Suzume retorted. Although the Myriad Beast sect isn't the Imperial Rule Immortal sect, they are still a first-rate sect with considerable strength. Lan Kier continued, my father is Su Qinshan. The two of them walked into the water domain together, passing through that pure and transparent water gate where the scenery inside seemed to change entirely. It was as if a transparent dome had isolated this area, be it the ground or the sky. It was enveloped in a layer of azure and transparent film of water. With every step on the water film, ripples spread out underfoot, and looking up, there was a drizzle coming down from the sky. This rain was not ordinary rain but a type of spiritual energy with its own attributes. No sooner had they entered the domain than they heard a surge of cheers from the side of the water gate. "What's going on there? Let's go take a look," Lon Kier said to Suzume. Suzume nodded, wanting to squeeze through the crowd. He found it was far too dense. Suzume thought for a moment before taking out a pile of spirit crystals from his storage ring, shouting to the crowd, "Hey! Whose few thousand spirit crystals are these? Go pick them up quickly." Upon hearing the words "a few thousand spirit crystals," the crowd instantly turned their heads to these loose cultivators with no backing. Even a few dozen spirit crystals were incredibly precious. Suddenly, they saw Suzume holding a huge pile of spirit crystals, scattering them onto an open space beside him. Thousands of spirit crystals rained down from the sky, and numerous loose cultivators ran crazily to grab the spirit crystals. Suzume pulled Lon Kier's hand, hurriedly squeezing into the crowd. As she watched Suzume hold her hand, a shiver ran through Lon Kier's heart, and she subconsciously wanted to withdraw. But after several tugs, she still couldn't pull away. Instead, Suzume's grip tightened even more. She looked at Suzume, only to see him pushing forward energetically, seemingly oblivious, and she muttered under her breath, "Shameless. Kier, it looks like someone is making a confession here." Suzume said. Lon Kier tried to pull away again twice, and upon finding it was futile, she let Suzume continue to pull her along. She looked up and saw that directly in front of them, a young man in white was holding a bouquet of flowers. These flowers were second-grade spiritual medicine, the unforgettable flowers. The general meaning of the flowers was to not forget each other and to accompany through life. Such flowers were quite common in Yuan's central continent, and because the name of the flower carried a nice implication, they were also deeply loved by many couples. "Yuer, be with me. A friend once joked to me that there are fairies in this world. I sneered at the time and didn't believe it, thinking that there were no perfect people in this world. It wasn't until the day I saw you that I discovered there really are fairies in this world," the man said, looking at the girl sincerely and deeply. The girl on the other side was wearing a long white dress, her demeanor somewhat demure, initially reticent toward the young man, but as his heartfelt confession continued, her cheeks blushed slightly. "Who is this guy?" Suzume asked the burly man beside him. "You don't know Su Chang'an? One of the 8 talented disciples of the Greenwood Empire, known as the Scholar Swordsman. He is very accomplished in both poetry and sword arts, and he's quite famous," the burly man explained excitedly. Suzume glanced at the man and said indifferently, "What's there for you, a big man, to be excited about? What's wrong with a man? Can't a man like Su Chang'an?" The burly man glanced at Suzume, then took a look at Lon Kier beside him. With a profound look, he said slowly, "Friend, as someone who has been there, let me give you a piece of advice. The reason you like women now is that you haven't yet met a man that makes your heart flutter." "Nonsense?" Suzume nodded emphatically, and then quickly put some distance between himself and the burly man. The confession in the center of the venue had reached a fever pitch, and the girl's last line of defense was nearly breached. Su Chang'an tilted his head slightly, his gaze affectionate as he began to recite softly. "The river and sky are one hue, free of dust. The bright moon alone in the vast expanse glows. Who was the first to see the moon by the riverbank? In what year did the moon first shine upon a person?" As the poem ended, the girl on the other side immediately fell into Su Chang'an's arms. Suzume turned his head and saw Lon Kier's eyes were also red, as if she was moved. "What's the matter?" Suzume asked disdainfully. "I wish someone would compose a special poem for me," Lon Kier said enviously, "so that one day, when that poem is famous throughout the ages, our love story will be remembered by everyone." That's easy, I'll compose one for you right here, listen up, Suzume said with disdain, then facing Lon Kier's expectant gaze, cleared his throat with a cough. You see how big and round the moon is, it's just like that bowl. Shut up. Okay then. Chapter 125. Having left the scene of flaunting affection, Suzume journeyed with Lon Kier to the deepest part of the water domain. The number of martial artists here had dwindled and the two of them encountered only a few others along the way. At the deepest part of the water domain, the Changha transformed into countless water dragons wreaking havoc within. With every clash between the water dragons, it was as though heaven and earth were splitting apart, sending faint dragon roars echoing in the midst. The vast ocean whipped up waves tens of thousands of feet high, rolling out several crests before exploding in the deep sea. The space here was a folded space, although it appeared small in size, the depth of the sea was actually immeasurable. Suzume took out Tyrant Shadow and then sat cross-legged, maneuvering Tyrant Shadow closer to the center of the torrent bit by bit. With each impact of the water dragons, Tyrant Shadow swayed precariously, but with each clash, the glow on Tyrant Shadow became even brighter and the blade itself became more pure. The water of the torrent came from the heavens, rushing into the sea, never to return. Watching Tyrant Shadow start its formal refinement in the midst of the torrent, Suzume relaxed his mind quite a bit. Lon Kier took a seat to the side, speaking out of sheer boredom. Continue with your story. What happened after you passed out and ended up in Zishuan village? After stabilizing Tyrant Shadow, Suzume diverted a portion of his focus and slowly said, "It was you who saved me at the riverbank back then. The first time you saw me, your heart raced especially fast, probably dazzled by my charm. Then you carried me back to your house while I was unconscious. As for what else you did to me while I was out, that I do not know. Don't flatter yourself, think I would fall for you?" Lon Kier retorted with a cold huff. "Still want to hear the story?" Suzume asked indifferently. "You want to tell it, or shall I?" "Yes," Lon Kier nodded obediently. "You tell it." "The days in Zishuan village were the most beautiful time of my life," as Suzume narrated with genuine feeling. The two sat by the seaside with raging seas around them, torrent waves rolling and crests exploding alongside the gentle chanting of water dragons, striking against Tyrant Shadow with thunderous force. As the young man recounted his tale softly, the girl watched him, sometimes grinning happily with his stories, occasionally playfully punching Suzume with her clenched fists. Suzume had much he wanted to tell Lon Kier, as the stories he told were of their past times together in Zishuan village. Of course, some parts were fictitious, mainly to highlight his own charm, intelligence, and valiant might. The storytelling lasted 7 days and nights, and it was only after Tyrant Shadow's refinement of the torrent attribute was complete that Suzume finally stopped. The storyteller spoke of experiences, and the listener also heard experiences. The storyteller envisioned themselves in the narrative, while the listener felt as if they were living through it. Suzume sheathed Tyrant Shadow, and with one strike, thunderous divine might roared forth, and the long Changha from 9 heavens surged tumultuously within it. Watching Suzume tread upon the air, his purple robe billowing in the wind, his rugged face was now filled with determination. He was not as irreverent as when telling stories. When he delivered that strike, the thunder dragon wrapped around the water dragon, roaring incessantly, exploding a sky-high wave in the sea behind him. Lon Kier looked on at Suzume, her gaze profound, her thoughts inscrutable. With the refinement of the torrent complete, Suzume prepared to take Lon Kier and head west towards the fire domain. Between the fire domain and the water domain, there was a very small vacuum space, and right in front of this vacuum space was a similarly enormous gate of fire. Suzume, accompanied by Lon Kier, walked into the fire domain. The first thing that caught his eyes was a deep and boundless sea of fire. The temperature of the sea of fire was low on the outside, but as one moved further in, the temperature increased in this fire domain. Many fire spirits, transformed into animals, were scurrying about. There were fire birds flying in the sky above, while fire lions tumbled and frolicked in the midst of the sea of fire. These fire spirits had no power to attack and would not harm others, as they had no consciousness. Even if you killed them, it would be like extinguishing a flame, meaningless. It wasn't long before Suzume's steps suddenly halted on the fire wall to the side. Spiritual energy began to surge, and a fierce fire lotus flower formed out of thin air. The lotus was as large as a palm. Although it was condensed from fierce fire, it emitted a rich fragrance. Suzume was about to pick it when he noticed someone was faster than him. a blue shadow flashed by, and the fierce fire lotus had vanished. Suzume frowned and looked over, only to see a Taoist priest in a blue robe appear with a horsetail whisk in hand. The Taoist smiled at Suzume, saying, "Supreme Heavenly Venerable, this fierce fire lotus is fated to be with this poor Taoist." Suzume shook his head with a smile, replying, "Taoist priest, I'm afraid you're mistaken. This lotus flower was clearly fated for me." "Your words are incorrect, benefactor." The Taoist, radiating the might of the Emperor Pulse Realm, said with a smile. "Now, with whom is this lotus flower fated to be?" Suzume gave a smile and took out the jade pendant given to him by Su Qingshan, saying with a laugh, "Then let it all be as the Taoist priest decides." Seeing Suzume about to crush the jade pendant, the Taoist's expression stiffened, and he hastily said with a laugh, "Heavenly treasures are for the virtuous. This poor Taoist is ashamed. To accept it would be unworthy. It is indeed fated for you, benefactor." "The Taoist priest is too courteous," Suzume replied with a smile, taking the lotus flower from the blue-robed Taoist's hand. The blue-robed Taoist gave Suzume a deep look and said with a laugh, "Benefactor, may we meet again if fate allows." Watching the blue-robed Taoist walk away, Suzume slightly furrowed his brow. It was a bit unrealistic for a powerhouse of the Emperor Pulse Realm to fight over a Tier 4 mysterious medicine. "An old fox and a young fox," Lan Kier said with a small wrinkle of her nose. "What do you know?" Zimo took out 8 lotus seeds from the bud of the fierce fire lotus. The shapes of these 8 lotus seeds resembled stars, and each seed was a different color, with 8 different colors in total. Suzume also pulled out an extremely pure white thread from the stem. He made small holes in the lotus seeds with spiritual energy, and then strung them all onto the thread. A bracelet flashing with 7 colors was thus created. Suzume held Lan Kier's right hand, and slowly put the bracelet on her. "Do you like it?" "Boring," Lan Kier uttered dismissively with a slight curl to her lips. "This bracelet of mine is much more valuable than the unforgettable flower that man had," said Suzume. "It's just a Tier 4 mysterious medicine compared to his Tier 2. That's all," Lan Kier responded. "There's no difference between Tier 4 and Tier 2 for me." "No, it's not about the tier." Suzume shook his head. "It's because this bracelet carries my deep love for you." Chapter 126. "Have you said this to many other girls before?" Lan Kier asked aloud. "I'm not interested in other girls." Suzume shook his head and replied. Lan Kier pursed her lips, gave Suzume a stunned look, and then turned her gaze away. The conversation between the two of them suddenly became scarce along the way. Suzume arrived at the deepest part of the fire domain, where a sea of fire hung upside down in midair, dense magma emitting burning heat beneath the sea of fire. Space twisted. The air was almost completely melted, and crackling explosive noises burst forth inside. Sparks tumbled within the sea of fire, and the fire spirits around it became denser. Countless animal visions formed by fire spirits ran about inside it. Suzume controlled Tyrant Shadow to float into the sea of fire, and then devoted a part of his attention to telling Lan Kier stories. The raging flames made Suzume's face glow red. Lan Kier took a handkerchief and gently wiped the sweat from his forehead. Seeing Suzume's smiling eyes, she quickly explained, "Don't get me wrong. This is just a reward for listening to your story." Suzume smiled, finding the girl similar to the one in his memory yet somewhat different. A few days later, the Earth Fire's attribute tempering was also fully completed. The shadow dragon engraved on the blade looked even more lifelike, with a faint dragon chant emanating from it. Tyrant Shadow successfully advanced to a heavenly tier weapon. Suzume looked at the transformed Tyrant Shadow. Besides the pattern of the shadow dragon on the weapon's surface, there were also symbols of lightning, torrential water, and flames. After storing Tyrant Shadow away, Suzume took Lan Kier by the hand and walked towards the wind domain. This time, Lan Kier did not resist and let Suzume lead her. Apart from the stories between the two of them, Suzume often told Lan Kier some of the strange and unusual tales of the continent. A sky full of sand buried the world, with a distant sandstorm whipping up a mighty hurricane, rampaging through the flying sand. This was not just a lone sandstorm, but a situation where countless sandstorms rampaged together. When these sandstorms collided, they didn't explode apart but merged into one, forming an even larger sandstorm. This wind domain engulfed in a sky full of sand was recognized by all martial artists as the most dangerous of the 4 elemental domains, and also the one that martial artists seldom visited. The gales howled through the air, with space in many places even beginning to collapse. The woo-woo sound of the wind seemed like the screams of demons from the underworld. Suzume tightened his clothes and firmly grabbed Lan Qir's hand, heading towards the innermost part of the wind domain together. The sandstorm blew so fiercely it was near impossible to open one's eyes. They hadn't walked long when they heard a voice not far away. "Not until the moment I saw you did I believe that there are fairies in this world." Suzume turned his head, and through the blinding sand, he saw a man holding an unforgettable flower, loudly declaring his love. The mad wind made his white robe flutter dramatically, with his long hair dancing in the wind as well despite the disheveled look. He somehow managed to appear inexplicably handsome. Suzume took a closer look and realized that this man was none other than Su Chang'an, whom he had previously encountered in the water domain, what 8 great talented disciples of the Greenwood Empire, scholar swordsman, and the like. Yet the woman facing him was no longer the girl known as Yuer from before, but rather a woman wearing a black robe who looked quite heroic and impressive. Damn, this guy must be a stud horse. Suzume had quite an eye-opening experience. A person can be this promiscuous, truly shameless. How long has it been? And he's already fallen in love with someone else. Suzume looked at Lan Qir, slightly raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, "Take a good look. How can this kind of scum compare to me? Back then you were moved by someone else's poetry." Lan Qir snorted coldly, then walked straight up. In the midst of the raging sandstorm, the black-robed woman, hearing Su Chang'an's words, chuckled lightly. "You must have said this to countless girls, I suppose. Why don't you believe me?" Su Chang'an sadly shook his head, then passionately said, "If possible, I would even be willing to take out my own heart for you to see just how much I love you." "All right then, I'll help you with that." A voice suddenly sounded. Su Chang'an was startled and quickly turned his head to look. He saw Lan Qir's momentum was overwhelming, with the peak energy of the empty vein realm faintly stronger than the surrounding protective winds. Step by step she walked out of the sandstorm. "Who are you?" Su Chang'an asked warily. "Just a kind passerby," Lan Qir said with a light chuckle, directly launching an attack on Su Chang'an. With her hands clenched, the spiritual energy in her fists exploded, and deep blue spiritual energy enveloped her. Su Chang'an hastily drew his sword to meet the attack, but with just one punch, he was sent flying backwards. Su Chang'an stabilized his form, his gaze fixed on Lan Qir as black spiritual energy swirled around his long sword. He took the initiative to attack, employing his most proficient vein skills, the ink-pointing sword technique. This sword technique was not only powerful in attack but also unpredictable in its moves, and even the visual beauty of its execution was incredibly elegant. It was as if he were painting a picture. His long sword filled with black spiritual energy, and each slash was like someone splashing ink across the sky with a brush. The long sword traced through the heavens, at times like a soaring eagle, at times firm as a pine standing upon a cliff. Under Su Chang'an's onslaught, Lan Qir was actually suppressed, only able to defend passively. Just as Suzume was preparing to step forward to help, a profoundly mysterious aura began to radiate from Lan Qir. The pale blue spiritual energy nearly solidified into spiritual liquid, and the surrounding currents of spiritual energy grew stronger and stronger. A blue light flashed on Lan Qir's body, and her skin quickly turned to a deep blue. Not just her skin, but even her eyes and her voluminous black hair all turned deep blue as the blue light on Lan Qir grew stronger. Suzume suddenly felt an unusual emotion unfurling at the bottom of his heart. He did not know what it was, just an indistinct, strange feeling that was hard to describe. Lan Qir's body shone with intensified blue light. Looking at Su Chang'an's dense shadow of sword strikes, she gently clenched her hands in the air, and then space itself collapsed. All the sword shadows dissipated, And even the long sword in Su Chang'an's hand shattered into countless pieces. Su Chang'an didn't even have time to react before Lan Qir was already clutching his neck. He looked pale with alarm, looking into Lan Qir's eyes filled with intent to kill, and revealing what he thought was a very handsome smile. He slowly said, "Someone once told me there were fairies in this world. At that time, I didn't believe it." Crack! Before Su Chang'an could finish speaking, his neck was directly twisted and broken by Lan Qir. Then, Lan Qir picked up Su Chang'an's long sword and directly cut open his belly. With blood-drenched hands, Lan Qir dug out the heart, turned to the black-robed woman who was petrified with fear, and smiled. "I helped you dig out his heart. Do you think he was sincere?" The woman swallowed hard, her face deathly pale. Then Lan Qir turned around, covered in blood, with the bloody heart still dripping. She gave Su Zime a sweet and innocent smile and said, "Zimo brother, look, his heart is fickle." Su Zime gave a skin-deep smile and nodded slightly. He could finally understand a saying, "Indeed, love can change a person." "What about your heart, Zimo brother?" Lan Qir asked curiously. "If you want to see, you can dig it out yourself," Su Zime said with a smile. "All right, I hope the words you told me weren't a lie, Zimo brother," Lan Qir said as she stepped towards Su Zime. In her left hand, she held the heart, and in her right was Su Chang'an's matched sword. When the sword touched his chest, Su Zime gently closed his eyes. Digging out a heart? For someone who has merged with the 100 great battle bodies, the heart is no longer of vital importance. But Su Zime understood that if Lan Qir really did dig out his heart, it would be the end for them both. He was mentally prepared. Yet the anticipated pain did not come. Instead, a warm body hugged him tightly. Su Zime could even smell the scent of the girl's blue hair. He slowly opened his eyes. He saw the girl with her head buried in his chest, refusing to let go for a long time. At that moment, both were silent. Su Zime did not know how long they embraced. The swirling sandstorm raged on around them. It seemed as if the sun in the sky was witnessing it all. Inside the wind domain, it had become difficult for martial artists to progress further with massive dust storms everywhere. Su Zime sat cross-legged, with Tyrant Shadow floating in midair, letting it be tempered by the storm as he continued to recount their story. After a few days, the first phase of tempering Tyrant Shadow was completely finished. Heavenly thunder and torrent roamed along the front half of the blade, while earth, fire, and hurricane rampaged on the lower half of the curved blade. The shadow dragon coiled around the central area, its eyes slowly opening that had been tightly shut if one stared at the shadow dragon too long. It seemed as if the sound of dragon chants could echo in the back of one's mind. That day there was no wind, the sunset died, the evening clouds incredibly beautiful, and I abandoned you and left. That was our last meeting. Since then, till I awakened from my dreams, I never saw you again, Su Zime said slowly. The story had reached its end. Lan Qir looked at Su Zime and earnestly asked, "If one day I leave, will you come looking for me?" "I don't know. You must come." "All right. When will you come?" "I don't know. They'll wait for you." "All right." The sandstorm was still raging, and the sun in the sky was slowly setting in the west. Lan Qir looked up at the pitch-black sky, devoid of starlight, her defiant gaze fixed on Su Zime as she said, "Hold me as I sleep." Su Zime nodded, for at his level of cultivation, sleep had long since lost its importance to him. The moonlight shone brightly in the sky as Su Zime found a relatively sheltered spot from the sand and held the girl as they slowly drifted into sleep. He was reminded of a saying by a writer: some people want to sleep, not because they are tired but out of nostalgia for sleep. Without a word, the two of them embraced each other in tacit understanding, saying nothing, just quietly feeling the pounding of each other's chests. As the light of dawn rose from the horizon, the sky gradually brightened to a dim gray. Lan Qir sat up and just quietly watched Su Zime. She tied up her long hair, looked at Su Zime, who was still in the land of dreams, leaned down to peck a kiss on his cheek like a dragonfly skimming the water, then turned and left. "Last time you abandoned me and left, this time let me be the bad person," she said. The scholar swordsman, happy and sad, were waiting for her not far away. The girl's figure gradually disappeared in the freshly risen line between heaven and earth. A few minutes after Lan Qir left, Suzume slowly opened his eyes. He chuckled softly, then stood up and quietly walked into the distance. The world of children is always full of willfulness. They throw tantrums and use all means possible to get what they cannot have, but in the world of adults, everyone knows that they should consider each other. Lan Qir knew that Suzume was not a person prone to romance. He had ambitions and dreams of his own on the martial path. She could have stayed by Suzume's side, but doing so would only hinder his journey on the martial path, so she left. Suzume also knew of Lan Qir's departure but did not stop her because he understood that cultivation was the most important thing for him at the moment. He would not have enough time to spend with Lan Qir, perhaps by stepping on the heavenly path. He had already chosen his destiny. He would go to find Lan Qir, but certainly not now. The martial path is one's loneliness, and loneliness is the revelry of many. Chapter 127. Suzume had just stepped out of the wind domain when he saw the sad Taoist waiting for him. As he watched Suzume emerge, the sad Taoist slightly furrowed his brows and said indifferently, "Boy, don't say I didn't warn you. Stay away from our young miss in the future. Do I need you to teach me how to handle my affairs?" Suzume replied indifferently, "Kid, don't be too arrogant just because you have some talent. Do you know who we are?" The sad Taoist scoffed with disdain. "Do you know who I am?" Suzume asked in return. The sad Taoist was taken aback. He truly did not know Suzume's background. He had watched Lan Qir grow up from a young age, and although the Lan family would not intervene in the marriages of clan descendants, he personally had a very poor impression of Suzume, which was why he took it upon himself to create this scene. "My father is the deputy sect master of True Martial Holy Sect and also the current ruler of the sect," Suzume said with a light chuckle. Upon hearing Suzume's words, the sad Taoist's expression stiffened. "True Martial Holy Sect, the sect founded by the first person of the human race, the true martial great emperor, and after the precipitations of a lineage of 4 emperors, was no weaker than their Lan family." The sad Taoist fell silent for a moment, then slowly said, "True martial holy sect may be strong, but there are no buts. Even here in the central continent, true martial holy sect is a peak-level sect." Suzume interrupted the sad Taoist's words and said indifferently, "Don't think of yourself as too high and mighty. In fact, you're nothing more than a dog. Do you believe that even if I killed you, the Lan family would be helpless against me?" Hearing Suzume's words, the sad Taoist's face turned awkward and he scoffed coldly before striding off into the air. He knew that staying would only bring more humiliation upon himself. Suzume watched the back of the sad Taoist as he left, shaking his head with a light chuckle. In fact, both the sad and happy Taoists were outstanding among the Emperor Pulse realm powerhouses. The experiences of both their lives were filled with drama. The happy Taoist was born into a wealthy and noble family. From the day he was born, he lacked nothing. When it came to martial cultivation, he was detected to have first-class aptitude and was directly favored by the sect master of a local sect, who took him as a direct disciple. Since then, he began a smooth and prosperous cultivation journey. He advanced to the condensing vein realm at the age of 20 and the empty vein realm at 50. After the age of 200, he reached the esteem vein realm, and now, having cultivated for 700 years, he had also become a powerhouse in the Emperor Pulse realm. This pace of progression would not be considered much for people from the Imperial Rule Immortal sect, but one must know that he had always been a loose cultivator before this. And even the initial sect he joined was but a minor one compared to the happy Taoist. The life of the sad Taoist was far more tragic. His mother died in childbirth on the day of his birth, and in his childhood, his father was also hacked to death by bandits. From a young age, he began a life of wandering. For a long time, he lived as a beggar, and there was even a period when he went completely insane. During his insanity, he accidentally consumed a divine herb, which subsequently began to change his life. Later, fate curiously brought the sad Taoist and the happy Taoist together, and the two unintentionally shared their own stories with each other. One had experienced all the hardships of the human world, while the other had always had a smooth-sailing life. Both gained insights from each other's stories, then realized the great Tao of sorrow and joy, and afterward joined the Lan family. The sad Taoist hadn't been gone long when Renpingxing came drifting through the air and found Suzume. "Young master, the entire Myriad Beast sect is on the lookout for you," said Renpingxing with a hint of helplessness. "I heard that whoever provides information on your whereabouts will be rewarded with an Earth-tier weapon. Do they know my identity?" Suzume asked. They shouldn't. Rinpingxing shook his head and replied, do you want to play a big game with me? Suzume said with a smile, play what? Ranpingxing asked, puzzled. Destroy the myriad beast sect, Suzume said, enunciating each word. Ranpingxing was startled and quickly responded, young master, things haven't escalated to that point between us and the myriad beast sect. If you just reveal your identity and apologize properly, they wouldn't dare to trouble you. I don't want to apologize, so the only option is to annihilate them, Suzume replied indifferently. Rinpingxing fell silent for a moment before speaking with resignation. But with just the two of us, we can't eradicate them. That's where the great emperor's true artifacts in your possession will come in handy, Suzume said afterwards. Suzume led Rinpingxing to a vacuum area in the wind domain, where there was a thin black membrane within. Suzume knew this was a formation, and inside the formation was the heart of the pure moon divine realm, where the pure moon altar was located. This formation was an 8th tier formation that martial artists below the Saint Vein realm couldn't break directly with their strength. Even a martial artist of the Saint Vein realm would need some time to break through the formation. But during that time, the Myriad Beast sect would certainly be alerted. What Suzume needed to do was to enter the formation quietly without drawing the attention of the Myriad Beast sect. He said to Rinpingxing, let the sun-devouring axe find one of the array seals and consume it, then take its place and open a gap for us to enter. Hearing Suzume's words, Rinpingxing was a bit puzzled, but he still awoke the artifact spirit within the sun-devouring axe. Black spiritual energy twined around the sun-devouring axe, and a majestic voice resounded from within, Junior, for what purpose have you awakened me? Rinpingxing hurriedly conveyed Suzume's suggestion to the sun-devouring axe. After sizing up the formation, the artifact spirit said with self-satisfaction, an 8th tier formation, even a typical great emperor's true artifact would struggle to enter without making a sound. However, my devouring attribute just happens to counter it. Junior, this is the second task I have done for you. Hearing the artifact spirit's words, Rinpingxing nodded quickly, knowing that after 10 tasks, according to the agreement between the artifact spirit and the great emperor, he would gain his freedom soon after. The entire sun-devouring axe was shrouded in black chi, and demonic chi enveloped a small part of the formation, with strands of devouring power permeating it. After a while, a 1-meter-tall small door suddenly appeared on the black membrane, into which Suzume and Rinpingxing quickly walked. The sun-devouring axe had simply consumed the array seal, and once Suzume and Rinpingxing had entered, it replaced the array seal back in its original place. Then, the small door gradually closed behind them. Having entered the heart of the pure moon divine realm, the space inside was immense. Suzume estimated that it was probably larger than the combined space of the 4 spirit domains outside. Suzume led Rinpingxing eastward for about half a day until they finally saw a barrier in the distance. This barrier enveloped 100 li within the pure moon divine realm, and at the entrance of the barrier, an old man wearing a green Taoist robe was sitting quietly at the door. Chapter 128. Although the elder did not exude an overbearing aura, his presence felt as deep and unfathomable as the sea, the depth and breadth of which were beyond tracing. Rinpingxing considered himself capable of holding his own against warriors of the Emperor Pulse realm, but the moment he saw the elder, he found himself devoid of any desire to fight. A Saint Vein realm powerhouse. His pupils shrunk as he spoke deliberately. The Myriad Beast sect really does value the pure moon altar, with not only an 8th level formation laid out around it, but also a barrier and the protection of a Saint Vein realm powerhouse inside. This is the fundamental cornerstone of their sect establishment. Of course they value it, Suzume said with a smile, to know that for a first-class sect like the Myriad Beast sect, powerhouses of the Saint Vein realm were few, and each was considered a precious treasure. Now that they would actually station a Saint Vein realm powerhouse to guard the door, it speaks volumes about the significance of the pure moon altar. How do we get in then? Rinpingxing asked. The pure moon altar initially purified the turbid and clear auras of the epoch and then became one with this world, Suzume explained with a smile. But few people know that the pure moon altar is divided into a subaltar and a mother altar. As long as we find the subaltar, we can use it to bypass the barrier directly and return to the side of the mother altar. About the subaltar, if Su Zimai's memory served her right in the previous life, it should have been obtained by Chuyang because she was defeated by Chuyang in secluded Dragon Gorge. Not only did she dedicate herself to cultivation afterwards, but she also collected a lot of information about Chuyang, thinking about using it for revenge for now, leaving Chuyang aside. In fact, even before the Chaos Pearl took her into the River of Fate, she had witnessed the scene of the Pure Moon Altar, merging with heaven and earth in the evolving River of Fate. Does the young master know where the subaltar is? Ren Pingshang asked. The subaltar is scattered around the vicinity of the Mother Altar, replied Su Zimei. Let your sun-devouring axe help search. It had undergone the tempering of destiny in the past. The primordial power of the Pure Moon Altar is the same as that of destiny. It should be able to sense it. Ren Pingshang was somewhat puzzled. It was known to people that everything about destiny was like a fog despite its renowned reputation, where being entrusted with destiny was said to make one invincible in this era. What destiny truly was, apart from the great emperors, nobody knew. Ren Pingshang did not understand how Su Zimei knew that destiny and the Pure Moon Altar's primordial power were the same, ultimately attributing it to the records left by great emperors at the imperial rule. Immortal sect, perhaps afterward, Ren Pingshang relayed Su Zimai's request to the artifact spirit. This is the third thing I am doing for you. The artifact spirit stated indifferently. In fact, the artifact spirit was also a bit puzzled. A great emperor's true artifacts' every use was exceedingly precious, and yet now Ren Pingshang was squandering two opportunities to assist someone else for no apparent gain. As the sun-devouring axe was engulfed in spreading black mist, it began to sense the surrounding heaven and earth. After a long time, the voice of the artifact spirit slowly came through. Keep heading in the southeastern direction. There's a very familiar aura over there, but I'm not sure if it's the one. Upon hearing the artifact spirit's words, Su Zimei and Ren Pingshang immediately dashed towards the southeast direction. Actually, around the perimeter of the barrier, the Myriad Beasts sect had arranged for many disciples to patrol the area. Although these disciples generally didn't possess very high cultivation levels, Su Zimei and Ren Pingshang could easily avoid detection, as the more talented disciples wouldn't be doing such tedious work. Keep moving forward. I feel the aura growing stronger. The voice of the artifact spirit emanated from the sun-devouring axe. Su Zimei and his companion quickened their pace, and after about 10 more minutes of travel, as they passed a hill, the artifact spirit instructed them to stop. It's right beneath here, you can try digging. Su Zimei exchanged glances with Ren Pingshang before he went to keep watch, while Ren Pingshang, holding a huge axe, began to dig. After digging nearly 100 meters deep, Ren Pingshang's excited shout came from underground. Young master, I found it. Do you think this is it? Su Zimei hurriedly ran down into the deep pit, only to see Ren Pingshang holding a palm-sized round altar. This round altar somewhat resembled a pagoda, with an oval base and 5 layers in total, each layer engraved with a variety of patterns. There were flowers, birds, fish, insects, and all kinds of animals, with the top 5th layer shrouded in chaos. Enwrapped in a hazy gray mist, the subaltar was currently emitting a faint purple glow. Flickering lightly, Su Zimei instructed Ren Pingshang, "Go outside and keep watch. I will refine it." Ren Pingshang nodded and then saw Su Zimei sitting cross-legged. He had originally planned to incorporate the subaltar of the Pure Moon Altar into his True Fate world, and then use the power of the world to refine it bit by bit. But the moment he brought the subaltar into his True Fate world, it trembled slightly, as if conveying its inner excitement. Following that, Su Zimei actually received the subaltar's desire to integrate with his True Fate world. He hadn't expected refining to be this easy. It was usually difficult to refine such wondrous items of heaven and earth quickly, but now Su Zimei realized he didn't need to refine them himself. Instead, these wondrous items were eagerly seeking to merge with him after. The Pure Moon Altar rooted in Su Zimei's True Fate world. The altar burst forth with intense purple light, gradually purifying both the turbid and clear chi within his True Fate world. Su Zimei could now fully utilize the subaltar, leveraging its power to sense the main altar's location, and then directly opening a teleportation gate that was the sole purpose of the subaltar. The teleportation gate could only lead to the main altar and not to any other place. As Su Zime and Renpingsheng stepped into the teleportation gate, their surroundings were completely enveloped by chaotic spatial currents. Meanwhile, at the location of the Pure Moon altar's main altar, a gate in the adjacent space also opened. The two of them stepped out from the space gate and quickly surveyed their surroundings, ensuring that no one had detected their presence, before they relaxed and began to appraise the area. Directly ahead was an especially tall altar, which was identical to the subaltar Su Zime had acquired, only its size appeared to be magnified countless times. The entire altar was enveloped in a pale white fog, giving it an overwhelmingly majestic and vast presence, as if it were a pillar of this world and beyond. Atop it bloomed hundreds of flowers, carps frolicked, colossal birds spread their wings, and tigers roared across the plains. Behind the altar lay an especially large blood pool, preliminarily estimated to be 1,000 miles long, with the fresh blood merging into a sea of blood. The surface of the sea of blood was exceptionally still at this moment. There was none of the expected stench of blood, but rather an invigorating aroma that was a delight to smell. "What do we do now?" asked Renpingsheng. Curiously, Su Zime didn't respond, but took out the nebula bottle from his storage ring, filled with the essence blood of the 9-headed divine beast that he had obtained from the blood demon's secret realm. Chapter 129. While it's called essence blood, after thousands of years of mutation and the grudge left by the divine beast at its death, it had turned into a drop of evil blood. Su Zime treaded through the air, his gaze fixed as he arrived at the very top of the Pure Moon altar. He placed the evil blood into the misty gray space at the top, and immediately the altar began to shake. The entire altar seemed to awaken, and the patterns etched on the other levels also appeared to come to life. As a holy light shone forth from the altar, this light seemed capable of purifying everything in the world, giving off a feeling of utmost sanctity and purity. As the light enveloped the evil blood, thick black smoke began to emanate from the surface of the blood. The ferocious faces of divine beasts before their deaths appeared on it, attempting to break through the light's embrace with the evil blood. Piercing screams rang out as the light and the black fog were locked in a stalemate. But as time passed, the light emitted from the altar gradually dimmed. Su Zime hastily took out spirit crystals from his storage ring and threw them all into the mist. Once these spirit crystals were absorbed by the altar, the once faint light began to grow stronger again, suppressing the evil blood. Su Zime threw the spirit crystals into it as if they cost nothing, unaware of how many he had tossed. But as the sacred light became increasingly powerful, black smoke billowed more heavily from the evil blood. Finally, with a roar mixed with words like true martial tykes, the drop of evil blood split in two. Afterward, the light receded, and the Pure Moon altar returned to calm once more. The two separate drops of blood floated in midair, the one on the left appearing extremely pure, with the aura of ancient divine beasts pervading it. The other drop of blood, though also blood red, looked strangely monstrous, as if it contained all the sinfulness of the world. Su Zime collected the 2 drops of blood into the nebula bottle. Knowing that the Pure Moon altar had expelled the evil blood, the blood drop on the left was the purest divine beast essence blood, while the one on the right was created by the thousands of years of mutation and all the unwillingness and grudges of the divine beast before its death. The altar was immensely large, and Su Zime took Renpingsheng to hide in the deepest part of the altar. He and Renpingsheng each took a true yuan breath-saving pill which Su Qingshan had given to Su Zime a long time ago. Worried about Su Zime's safety with the true yuan breath-saving pills, even the perception of those in the Saint Vein realm couldn't detect the two of them. Although Renpingsheng did not know the purpose of Su Zime's actions, he knew that Su Zime would share whatever he wished to say with him. The two hid there for a full 3 days, and on the morning of the 4th day, Renpingsheng was awakened from his cultivation state by a very noisy commotion. He peered out slightly towards the outside of the altar and saw a dense crowd of people pouring in from the distance. At a glance, Renpingsheng estimated that there were nearly 10,000 people, all dressed in uniform garb, and they more or less exhibited traits of monster beasts, clearly disciples of the myriad beast sect. The leader of these disciples was a man in black robes who looked robust to the point that Renpingxing thought the man's arms were thicker than his own thighs. The man's face was adorned with a few tiger whiskers, and on his forehead was faintly etched the character for king. As he approached head-on, the overwhelming oppressive feeling was as if a ferocious beast had descended upon the world. Following this man were 4 elders in black robes with their entire figures shrouded within, only revealing their aged faces. All 4 elders, including the man directly in front, exuded an overwhelming presence, and the entire area trembled before their combined might. Clearly, these were 5 strong practitioners of the Saint Vain realm, indicating that a significant part of the myriad beasts sect's upper echelon was present. See that man in the black robe? Su Zime whispered to Renpingxing, that's the current sect master of the myriad beasts sect, Li Yunhu. When nearly 10,000 disciples arrived together, the spectacle was grand, and everyone looked up solemnly at the towering pure moon altar that reached into the clouds. Soon, they set up incense tables, seemingly paying homage to something. As the purple incense smoke slowly rose, nearly 10,000 people kneeled down and kowtowed 3 times in the direction of the pure moon altar. At that moment, Su Zime and Renpingxing were hidden inside the altar, watching nearly 10,000 people. Kneeling before them, among them a mix of various Saint Vain powerhouses and countless Emperor Pulse practitioners. Renpingxing clicked his tongue twice and said, I can't bear such veneration from so many people, but to tell the truth, it does feel pretty good. After everyone had finished kneeling, a Saint Vain realm elder in a black robe stood guard on the side. The rest, under the leadership of sect master Li Yunhu, entered the vast and boundless sea of blood nearby. The Saint Vain realm elder on one side waved his hand grandly, nearly shattering a corner of the sky and space itself. The sound of rushing water arose as a Wu-Gung river thundered in from the horizon, surrounded by a faint mist. The ethereal aura permeated the area, and as the river surged unceasingly, it all flowed into the pure moon altar under the control of the Saint Vain realm elder. Renpingxing focused his eyes and realized that what thundered in the river was not water, but precious drops of spiritual liquid. For a loose cultivator like him, even a small bottle of the spiritual liquid was vital, yet these people were casually producing a river's worth. Indeed, these large sects truly didn't regard wealth as anything significant. Renpingxing vowed silently, damn it, someday I'll set myself a small goal too, like, let's start by making 1 billion tons of spiritual liquid. As all the spiritual liquid flowed into the pure moon altar, the entire colossal structure emitted a light that pierced the heavens, its might far surpassing what Su Zime had previously demonstrated. Meanwhile, Li Yunhu led the rest of the elders and disciples into the sea of blood. They used their hands to tear the flesh from their bodies, a pain unimaginable to the average person, and anyone unable to endure could even die from the agony. Once all flesh was peeled away, it was revealed that the blood inside all these people was black, exuding a profound evil aura. They intended to purge every last drop of the dark blood remaining in their veins. At this time, those in the sea of blood looked ferocious, their bare white bones exposed without any flesh. When all the dark blood had been cleansed, a sacred white light shone down from above the pure moon altar. This white light enveloped thousands of miles of the sea of blood, causing the sea's blood to churn vigorously. They controlled their remaining dark blood to float midair, slowly purified by the white light. Chapter 130. And then everyone began to absorb the rest of the clean blood from the sea of blood, a process that had to be extremely cautious. A slight mistake could cause incurable hidden ailments, or worse, immediate death. The elder of the Saint Vain realm radiated a rainbow-like aura guarding nearby. Inside the altar, Su Zime whispered to Renpingxing, later you'll use your full strength to attack this pure moon altar with the sun-devouring axe and disrupt its purifying light. Leave the rest to me. Renpingxing nodded, aware that Su Zime might be about to do something big. Remember, you must attack with all your might. You only have one chance, Su Zime urged with concern. Ordinary attacks are useless against the altar. As everyone was enveloped in sacred light and began the blood exchange, Renpingxing took a deep breath and took out his sun-devouring axe. At that moment, dark chi wafted around him as he once again awakened the spirit of the great emperor's true artifact. Empowered by both the Emperor pattern and the residual power of destiny, the space around him completely shattered under this imposing aura. Dark mist roared on the massive axe, his expression twisted as he flew out of the altar and struck down towards its top with all his might. Time seemed to freeze in that moment, and Rinpingxing felt his life had never been as much the center of attention as then. From the day he was born, the Rin family had already been in decline. And being a descendant of a great emperor brought him not glory but responsibility. But today he would raise the massive axe. He would, in the heartland of a first-class sect, he would, in the face of nearly 10,000 horrified gazes. Whether Emperor Pulse or Saint Vane, he would shine as bright as the blazing sun. He would strike with that one axe. As the axe passed, the firmament roared in fury, the sky mourned, and the faces within the dark mist screamed. Everyone's ears were filled with an explosive sound that shattered the heavens. The axe struck the pure moon altar with tremendous force, leaving not even a scratch on the unusually sturdy structure. But the holy light of purification emanating from the altar was disrupted as Rinpingxing made that strike. The elder of the Saint Vane realm had already noticed him. "You insolent fool," the elder roared in fury. Spiritual energy surged across the sky as he sent his massive hands straight towards Rinpingxing. The hands annihilated everything in their path. Space collapsed, and at that moment Rinpingxing, surrounded by pitch-black demonic chi and wielding the sun-devouring axe, feared nothing. He swung his axe towards those hands as if he were ready to fight heaven and earth. Regrettably, the power of the Saint Vane realm was simply too overwhelming, and with just one palm strike, Rinpingxing was sent flying, coughing up blood. As Rinpingxing stood up ready to attack the altar again, the Saint Vane realm elder snorted coldly and, stepping through the air, waved his hands, binding Rinpingxing with forces of confinement. At this critical moment in the blood exchange within the blood pool, Su Zime flew out from the inside of the altar and dropped a drop of fresh blood into the blood pool. This drop of fresh blood was exactly what he had earlier separated from the essence blood of the nine-headed divine beast. It represented the resentment of all divine beasts and could be described as utterly evil blood without the protective light from the pure moon altar to purify it. The moment Su Zime's drop of evil blood entered the blood pool, it instantly dissolved into the sea of blood. The reason Su Zime had Rinpingxing block the purifying light of the pure moon altar was to contaminate the blood pool, because if the suppressing light of purification were present, even if Su Zime introduced the evil blood, it would be futile, as everyone was carrying out the blood exchange at this crucial juncture. They devoted their entire being to the task, having no spirit left to pay attention to the situation outside. When the sea of blood, now amalgamated with the evil blood, was absorbed by nearly 10,000 people, screams from disciples with lower cultivation levels began to rise. The truth was, after the evil blood was dispersed, it had already become very diluted, but the constitutions of the people from the myriad beast sect were too special. Even a trace of evil blood could cause them serious harm at this moment, as the nearly 10,000 people in the field screamed in agony. The countenances of the Saint Vane realm elders and sect master Li Yunhu at the very front turned dark with an enveloping blackness, struggling to hold on. The Saint Vane realm elder who had just captured Rinpingxing overhead immediately noticed the abnormality, let out a furious roar, and charged directly towards Su Zime. His momentum as if he wanted to tear him into pieces. Su Zime hastily crushed the jade token his father had given him. The spiritual energy between heaven and earth surged like clouds and mist, and a blue shadow appeared in front of Su Zime. The moment the blue shadow appeared, myriad sword chi enveloped his surroundings. Clothed in a green robe, his eyes indifferent, the blue shadow casually pointed, and myriad sword chi flew towards the onrushing Saint Vane realm elder. The elder shattered countless sword chi with a palm, but more sword chi continued to fly towards him. Incessantly, he failed to dodge in time and his palm was grazed by a sword chi. The elder gazed at the blue shadow before him. Naturally, he also knew it was just a divine soul, but the fact that a half-step Saint Vane realm divine soul could engage him in this manner suggested how powerful the true body must be. Although this divine soul was split from Su Qingshan, it actually had no consciousness, being entirely directed by Su Zime. More and more disciples in the sea of blood began to cry out. In misery, the Saint Vane realm elder grew frantic. His only thought was to quickly suppress Su Zime and Rinpingxing, and then restart the pure moon altar. Run! Su Zime had the blue shadow hold off the elder, while he shouted to Rinpingxing high above. Rinpingxing took a deep breath, demonic skills emanating from his hands, and with a swing of his axe, he shattered the bindings around him and then ran towards the outskirts of the pure moon divine realm. The feeling of running away after putting on a show is truly exhilarating. Rinpingsheng silently thought to himself, watching Su Zime and Rinpingsheng escape into the sky while the divine soul before him blocked his path. The Saint Vane Realm Elder did not wish to tangle further. His true fate emerged, and a phantom of the ancient divine beast Azure Dragon materialized above his head. The Azure Dragon roared fiercely, its immense beastly might permeating the entire space. The Saint Vane Realm Elder went in for the kill. After a long battle, he finally extinguished the divine soul and hurriedly went to reactivate the pure moon altar. Su Zime and Rinpingsheng stepped through the air, leaving the pure moon divine realm and also 100 Beast City. No one would have expected that at this moment the famous Myriad Beast sect from the extreme west region was undergoing a life and death crisis. Su Zime knew that he had now made an enemy of the Myriad Beast sect, but given the current situation of the sect, it was doubtful that they could maintain their first-rate sect strength, let alone come after him for trouble. Su Zime and Rinpingsheng did not stop on their way and headed straight for the true martial holy sect. The day of the 7 sects competition was approaching, but Su Zime did not know whether the Myriad Beasts sect could even participate anymore.